Given the name of his organization and company, he works to represent the 22 countries located in Latin America. And you'll notice it's Tech 23 because there's one more. It is a way to honor the Latinos that are in the United States currently. So all of us. He also had an event that just happened out of Houston called Yachay, which is the Quechua word for wisdom. And in that work, he was able to bring together neuroscience, art, and tech all in one. He's incredible. And let's give him a warm welcome, Jose Avalos.
Muchas gracias, muchas gracias. Well, it's a pleasure to be here. I just drove in from Houston. Anybody else from Houston? Nice. All right, we got our Houston. Which today, this means OU in Texas, right? Here in Dallas. Well, again, thank you all so much for letting me be here. I have an incredible group of panelists today. Thank you for the introduction about Tech 23. Yes, we're trying to get more Latinos into tech. The problem we're solving is that although Latinos are big users of technology, we only make about 6 to 8% of the industry. So we're trying to bump that up to 20%. Once we hit that goal, we close the company, we're done. We move on to the next problem. But in the meantime, we're trying to work that. So I want to introduce my panelists now to come up here. I'm going to start off with Tatiana. And do we have another microphone? Oh, yes. So you guys are going to get a chance to learn about Tatiana along with me. So I have a lot of introductory questions. Number one, can you tell us your name, your title, and what is one of the problems you're solving right now with your startup?
Yeah. Hi, everyone. My name is Tatiana Chamorro. I am from Nicaragua. I think you didn't ask that, but I'm going to add that into my bio. I am the Chief Marketing Officer at Toucan Cocktails and one of the co-founding team members. What are we solving? We are solving, who here likes cocktails? Awesome. Okay, I was hoping it was a lot of people. Who here likes premixed cocktails? Yeah, usually nobody. I don't like them. So we're solving that problem.
Got it. Awesome. Thank you so much. So our next guest, Rob, come up here.
Thank you.
Yes. Tell us your name, your title, and what's the problem you're solving right now?
Oh, that's a serious question. Roberto Villanueva is my name, but Roberto sounds like a Roberto, so I just go by Rob. I'm from New York. My parents are from the Dominican Republic, raised in Washington Heights, and living here now in Dallas. Problem that I'm solving. So community is important to me. You know, I grew up in an apartment building, 1630 St. Nicholas Avenue, where the vecina, the vecinos, everyone knows each other, everyone looked out for each other. You know, when my grandma passed away, the whole building knew, the whole neighborhood knew, because she was part of that community. So trying to recreate the values of those communities in certain rooms where private equity is being raised, where my brother has a skin condition, and building an online platform that allows people to be themselves virtually and connect with others and create support groups and create more meaningful connections. That's a problem that I'm actively trying to solve today.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Roberto. And then last but not least, I saved the best for last, from Houston. Thomas, come up here, join us. A Thomas sí lo conozco ya. Thomas, tell us a little bit about yourself and what problem you're solving.
First and foremost, I'm a dad. That's Jeremiah back there.
Hey, Jeremiah.
My name is Thomas Fields. I'm the founder and CEO of Grind. We solve problems for athletes. So our first product is a portable, more affordable basketball rebounding machine. I started it when I was 19, and we've been able to scale up. It's seen on Shark Tank, Forbes, 30 under 30. Yep, you saw Shark Tank? Nice. We solve problems for athletes by creating interactive sports equipment. And we're building a smart ecosystem of sports products with a platform where they can connect to coaches, that track their data and all that good stuff.
Perfect. So for Tech 23, we lead with cultura. We think that's the answer to get more Latinos engaged into tech. So a cultura question right now. I want to do a roll call of all the Latin American flags that we rep, and I want to know where you guys are from. Anybody from Argentina?
Wepa.
This is also teaching me the demographics of Dallas, because I know the Houston one's pretty well. We're like half Mexican down there. All right, Belize, Bolivia, Brazil, Chile, Colombia. There's always some Colombians. No? Wow. Costa Rica. Cuba.
You're striking out left and right.
Ecuador. El Salvador. Ah, okay, El Salvador. There we go. Guatemala. Haiti. Honduras. Mexico. Mexico. All right, well, there's still some more. Nicaragua.
Woo!
Panama. There we go. Paraguay. Peru. Puerto Rico. Yeah, I knew that was going to be loud here. Dominican Republic. There we go. Okay. Uruguay y Venezuela. All right.
Are we representing all of Central and South America? I think we are.
Yeah. Okay. Well, big responsibility. You got to be as loud as him. Okay. So because this summit is called the Latin Wealth Summit, I want to get to know you guys a little bit better about the very first dollar you made. So I'll start first. My first dollar where I traded a good or service was not an ethical one. I was a kid in elementary and we had a reading program called Accelerated Reader. Long story short, if you read books, you could take a test. They had a point system value to it. And depending on how many points, they would reward you with little gifts and stuff. But the top reward for us was a pizza party with the principal. Because I knew English and Spanish, I would sit, and I got approval first from my English teacher, Miss Shields, which she comes into play later. But I asked her, hey, is it cool if I help the other students that read the book to take it in Spanish as well? Because you could take it in English and Spanish and get double points for the same book. So me and my friend Mayra, we started sitting next to the other students in class and translating the questions that were getting asked to their book so we could get double the points. And my elementary school was the bears. So you start at a koala bear and like a polar bear and a grizzly bear. And the top level, I think, was the polar bear. And I almost hit polar bear status where we was going to get the pizza party. And like nobody had done that in a long time. And the librarian got caught on to the whole thing. And apparently it wasn't cool that, you know, some kids weren't reading the books, but still getting the points. So I got in trouble. I met the principal for the first time ever, not at a pizza party, but because I was in trouble in his office, me and Mayra. And then I straight up told, I was like, hey, but Miss Shield said it was okay. Like I asked her first. And then Miss Shield totally denied me like Jesus and was like, I didn't tell you anything. I didn't say that was going to be cool. But they didn't take the money away that we made. We made a couple, like maybe $100 throughout the semester, which was cool if you're like a kid in like 5th grade. But that was my first unethical dollar that I made, but it was the first dollar. After that, I went back to selling dulces from the pulga to the kids in the class. Tatiana, what was the very first dollar you earned?
You know, I've always been an entrepreneur. Looking back, so I would sell cookies in my neighborhood. Turns out my mom was calling the neighbors to buy them. I was super proud that they were being sold. But I can remember a couple of times. One of them is I went on a trip with my family to Mexico. And I grew up in Nicaragua. So this is me going to Mexico, coming back to Nicaragua. I brought all of this candy that I got from Mexico. It was not a thing in Nicaragua. We don't do spice. And I started selling it to all the kids in school. But it was like, I started seeing that the first graders would pay a lot for these candies. So I started selling it expensive and I made a lot of money. And I got called to the principal as well. I also started selling bows. I would make bows and I would sell them to the school. And I made like $800. So that
was way more than I did.
That was in like 11th grade though.
Okay.
So for me, that first dollar, at an early age, my background started in tech, and I didn't do a good job of introducing myself, but I spent about 15 years as a network engineer working in Silicon Valley back in the 90s. But even before that, my dad installed in me the entrepreneur spirit, but in a very unethical way. My dad was a kingpin drug dealer, had nightclubs, little laundering money left and right. But out of that, I got into tech because we used to own these beeper stores. Remember the beepers back in the days, pagers? Not everybody had beeper, but
Cue the music.
I know, right? Right, he was ready. But I used to take those and used to flip them. I used to take beepers from the stores, fix them, repair them, understand like the motherboard of a frequency and change them to different providers. And then I started doing that to computers. So me and my best friend, which is another Rob, it's another story for another day. We used to take computers around the neighborhood and fix them. And I became a PC technician at the age of 14. and then got A+ certified. And that's actually what elevated my computer career. And I made the first $75. It was fixing somebody's memory and flipping it and opening up the computer. And I was like, this is easy. I could do this all day. Yeah, but at 14, 15, making $75 a pop, made it pretty good, decent.
Man, I went into the wrong industry. Okay. Thomas.
Man, that's funny. I think I can't remember if it was selling candy in middle school or selling CDs. I would burn CDs. So my dad was a music producer for all kinds of Houston rappers, and yeah, we had a CD burner at the house. So I'd take a list of like all the people's favorite songs. I think we had the ability to do DVDs, and I did a couple of DVDs, but yeah. I would take a list of songs that people would want, like 10 songs. I'd go home, burn them, and sell it to them for $10. Then I think I started doing candy in middle school, and then I had this really innovative idea to sell fruit cups because there's a lot of competition with candy. There's a lot of kids selling candy, so I want to be different.
Obviously, everybody on the stage sold candy.
Yeah, so I was like, you know what, man, we need to be healthy. I'm a hooper. I was like, I'm gonna sell fruit cups, and my girlfriend at the time, she was really pretty. Now my wife, I was like, you know what? She was a basketball player too. She was my model, right? And then I had pictures of fruit cups. Man, I sold out. I was doing really good. And then the lunch lady just came and wiped me out. Man, she started killing me. She started selling at the cafeteria and undercut me. And that's my first kind of lesson into competition and price. So yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, now I'm curious. Raise your hand if you ever sold candy at school. Okay. Was it Mexican candy? Takis. Okay. The chips. That's right. What else? What was the variety? Mexican candy too? Salsas. Uh-huh. Interesting. All right, for my candy sellers, what was your top selling product? To me, it was a little, the watermelon shaped ones that had chile. That was my top selling product always. What about y'all?
The one that had little like pelitos picantes que salían, like you push it and
Pelón Pelo Rico.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
See? I have some here with me if you want.
Yeah, that was mine.
The Pelón Pelo Rico?
Yeah, the one that you push up?
Yeah. Interesting. Okay, so now let's to share more about your startup right now. I'd like to know right before you launched it, when you went to kind of see who are the competitors in this space, tell us who some of the competitors are, and then also tell me what is it that you saw that you said, I can definitely do this part way better than them, and it was such a feeling that you're like, I can start a company by just making sure that I do that part better.
So I'm going to try to be quick here, but my story is a little bit different than a traditional startup. My background is branding and marketing, and I had a branding and marketing agency. I had started a company with a partner, and all of our employees were in Nicaragua. We started growing really quickly. We got to 200 employees in Nicaragua, and we had a big part of it was the branding side, which is what I had co-founded. Really quickly, though, I realized that that's not where I wanted to be. I did not align with my partners and how they thought. And it was actually a very, very hard time because the transition left me, selling my shares, moving away, but then also kind of losing my identity. During this time, though, I had a company that I had become an advisor to, and I had been advising them for 3 years. And that is the company that I am with now. They hired me to become the chief marketing officer, but they also invited me to become an equity partner. So it was a very interesting transition for me. The first thing that they did is they hired me to do a market research analysis. And that market research analysis, what I did was I looked at competitors, I looked at the marketing strategies they were doing, what their website looked like, and I came up with a plan on how and what they needed to implement to actually start it growing. When I presented this to them, they were like, hey, you're not doing anything anymore now that you sold your shares at your other company. Why don't you come and join us? And I went back and I spoke to my husband because it was a big risk. I had just come from, launching a branding agency, which was a huge risk too. For me, a big part of what I want to do is I want to become a philanthropist. So money, even though it was important, it wasn't as important as giving back to people in my country. For those of you that don't know, we have a humanitarian crisis in Nicaragua. We have a dictator, and people were flying in 2018. And I just have always felt very blessed to be able to be here. But I always think of those that can't be here, that are in Nicaragua, that their family is there. So for me, being able to create something where I could build that stability for those in my country was really important. And I digressed, but essentially what I realized was, why not just take another risk? So I became one of the first 5 founders. And for the first year, I didn't take a salary. We all didn't take salaries, and we decided to just start building this. So that was very, very interesting because it was another risk coming from building a startup where, it just didn't work out the way I wanted it to. And what I started to do is definitely the market analysis really set that foundation to know where we needed to start. Without that, I don't think we could have been where we are right now. We have been in the market online for 55 days. We have sold over $88,000 in our product, which is about 5x more than we thought we would in the first, month. We have also sold about $150,000 to retail stores. We have closed our distributors in Texas. All of that to say is that we knew the markets we wanted to hit because we did the market analysis. Before I mention my competitors or I mention my company, we are called Toucan Cocktails. Toucan like the bird. Look us up in Instagram or TikTok or wherever you are at, and follow us. Basically, it's the top can has the liquor or the spirit. The bottom can has the cocktail mixer. So they're separate until you're ready to mix them. And the way that it works is that you pour the top can into the bottom, and then you snap it together and it becomes a shaker, like a cocktail shaker. You can shake it and you can drink it from the bottom. When I did the market research, we have 3 top competitors. And I would even say to this day, it definitely tastes much better than the competitors. And a big reason for that, no bias here, right, is that it is not pre-mixed. So we're able to elevate the quality of the spirit on the top, and we're able to make the ingredients on the bottom more fresh. So it's a little bit of a complexity coming from having a marketing agency. Every time that I met with a client, they would tell me, oh, we don't have competitors. We're the only one that does this in the field. You do have competitors, especially when you're competing online for space, because there are things like keywords that everybody wants to rank for. So at the end of the day, it's important that you identify who are those in your field that are wanting to rank for the same type of words.
Yeah, she showed us a picture of it earlier. It's really cool. It's like a can inside of a can. And I think a big value thing you told me, some of the ingredients, they don't stay fresh if they're already pre-mixed. But if you keep them separate until you're ready to drink it, you get a much fresher, crisper drink. So that's really cool. Rob?
So my story is a little bit different just because I started in tech and then moved over to sports, but it wasn't by choice. I had a brother, one of my youngest brother, played in the NBA for 11 years. And for Dominicans playing basketball, it's not our typical thing. Baseball's our thing, right? But when he got drafted back in 2005, it was like when he got drafted, I feel like I got drafted. The whole family got drafted. We all rich, right? That's what we're thinking. Not realizing the checks were in his name. But I learned a lot throughout that period because I became his right-hand man. Every team he went to, I was with him. And we built a lot of relationships throughout that whole period. And now that he's retired, right now I work in sports media where we tell athlete stories. Derek Jeter, for some of you I remember, he started a platform called the Players Tribune. And along with that, meeting all these athletes and hearing their stories, Charlie and I started building real life communities where it was private, it was in his living room. And we were noticing a lot of athletes after their careers were ended, like, what are we going to do now? I'm just at home with the kids. These kids are driving me crazy. I need to get out of the house. So we created a little private club. Invite a couple guys. This is chop it up. We called it the Break Bread Club. And while that was happening, we were hearing all these stories of the things that were working and things that were not working. And we were noticing that was sort of market research. That was our focus group. We didn't even realize that was happening, but it was happening in real time. And we had an opportunity to invest and partner in a sports agency. One of Charlie's former teammates, Ramon Sessions, started an agency called On Time Agency. And it's rare because in the 75 plus years of the NBA, there's probably been close to 5,000, a little over 5,000 players that's ever played in the NBA. Out of that 5,000 plus, maybe 5 became agents, certified agents. And only one owns their company 100%, and it's black owned, and that's Ramon. And when he had this idea 2 years ago, I helped him with his branding, his marketing, kind of get him started, and Charlie partnered up. But then we started seeing what the traditional landscape look like for your typical sports agency? And yeah, we'll manage you, we'll handle your contracts, you'll do your marketing, your sponsorship, but it was all the same. It was very cookie cutter, very transactional. It's a transactional business, and this is something that Charlie learned from his agent when the ball stopped bouncing, the calls stopped coming in. And he started realizing from his agent that preached, we're family, we're going to do this together. Throughout your entire life, you're going to be good. But as soon as it was his last years in his MBA, it wasn't the same relationship. They didn't prioritize him because he no longer providing value, transactional value. So that's an interesting part of what we're trying to solve now with this new agency and partnering up and figuring out not only the active players, and now NIL is a whole new world in college sports, but post-retired players, the forgotten ones. Is there a service that they're missing, that they're needed? So that for us, something that happened naturally, but it happened on real life experiences, on the things that were missing, and how can we fill those voids?
Thank you. And besides your brother, who is your all-time favorite NBA player?
Patrick Ewing, New York Knicks, all day.
Okay. No Texas team? Did your brother ever play for the Texas team?
Yeah, that's actually one of the reasons I live here in Dallas. His last team was with the Dallas Mavericks. Okay. And I was telling, I think it was Ada, that his last team was with the Mavericks. He retired around 15. And when that pandemic hit, Texas, y'all crazy. But when the pandemic hit, he was like, come out here. It's wide open. Ain't nobody wearing masks out here. So I ended up making the move and been here for the last 3 years. Yeah.
Okay, awesome. Well, I remember I'm a longtime Rockets fan just because born and raised in Houston. But man, I hated playing Dallas back in the day because you guys beat us all the time. But hopefully, it's going to be a little different now.
I don't know about that.
I know. I'm very hopeful. I'm very hopeful. What was the question? So before you launched your business, what are some of the competitors you saw in the market, and what did you say? I can do this part so much better, enough that you launched your own business.
Yeah, perfect. Yeah, so when I started Grind, I was 19. I was fresh out of high school. Hello? I think I'm going in and out. But I was fresh out of high school, and I essentially didn't have access to my school's shooting machine, right? So what a shooting machine is a $10,000, 400-pound basketball rebounding machine that a lot of schools will purchase for the players, and it gets your rebounds automatically made and missed. And instead of shooting 100 shots within an hour, you can now shoot 10,000 shots within the hour, or 1,000 shots. Sorry, 1,000 shots within the hour. So it elevates your game 10x, right? And professional teams, Houston Rockets, Dallas Mavericks, they all have these things, right? But a school like mine in the inner city, we had to raise money for these things. And when we finally did, I was coming off of my second ACL tear. So I tore my ACL here, tore it again here. And we got the shooting machine in, and I'm like, oh my God, I gotta use it. This is my ticket. I'm on my goal. I'm ranked in the city. I was really good. And I had to use it. And we had a new coach at the time. My old coach was a crazy work ethic, kind of instilled the grind mindset in me. This new coach didn't, and he never let me in the gym. I was like knocking on the door trying to get in the gym 5 a.m.
You wasn't with me shooting in the gym?
No, they wouldn't even let me in the gym, right? So the whole idea was I was really, really frustrated that I didn't have access, and the only thing that was available was a $10,000 machine. And I just kind of asked myself, what if Nike recreated this thing and really had athletes, center of mind? And I was like, I think they would, redesign this thing to be beautiful. I think they would fold it into a really dope Nike duffel bag where I could take this thing anywhere and make it affordable for kids like me, whether it's inner city or wherever you are, right? Just level the playing field where you don't need to drop $10,000 on a machine, right? So I went in my parents' garage at 19, and I went to the drawing board and re-engineered the legacy 40-year shooting machine, and made it collapse into a duffel bag, and figured out a way to redesign it to be affordable for athletes. So I am a self-taught mechanical engineer, welding, 3D printing, laser cutting, all that good stuff. I love it. So yeah, that's kind of the two competitors that have been out there. They've been around 20 to 30 years. I think one of them 40 years. So yeah, we are the first company to make the first portable machine and the most affordable machine on the market. So we came in and coined the term, the home shooting machine. Now our competitors have been copying us a lot, which is good, right? Because that means we're doing something right. But yeah, that's kind of our view on the market right now.
You want to share a discount code with the crowd in case they have some kids playing basketball?
We have one. You got to ask my wife. She's our CMO. So
Gotcha. I know there's a Black Friday special coming up.
I was going to say, at least he didn't say they're giving away free milk crates. Milk crates back in the days used to be the original shooting machine for some of you
you're right.
OGs out here.
Right,
you used to cut the bottom of it, put it up in the pole. That's your shooting machine.
Absolutely. That's what grind represents, though. At the end of the day, nothing should be able to stand in your way to reach your dreams. And we're trying to create products that, instill that mindset where, a $10,000 machine shouldn't be the only thing, right? You should have accessible, really innovative, equipment at your fingertips by a brand that motivates you and, loves you as an athlete and wants the best for you, right? I think another thing that I should touch on is, being an athlete and transitioning into tech is kind of our mission to instill that into athletes all around the world, right? So now that we've sold to all 50 states and now countries, we're scaling up. I think our mission is to inspire kids through sports, right? And use sports as a vehicle to kind of, get to their hearts. But also if they don't, 99% don't make it to the league, right? If they do, great, we create the products for you to do that. But if you don't, our brand is kind of what we're trying to lean on. So, introducing kids into tech is kind of our mission. So now we're running Friday Night Lights, where it's like an underground basketball club at our warehouse in Houston. So if you guys are ever in Houston, hit us up. We have one next Friday. But it's essentially like a place where you can just come play basketball, right? But eventually I want to turn this thing into somewhere where it's like an underground lab where there's 3D printers and laser cutters all around. And, it's really introducing that first step into kids' lives where it's introducing them to tech.
Thank you. So raise your hand in the crowd if you're an entrepreneur, if you have a startup currently. Awesome. Raise your hand if the startup is within its first year. Okay, seasoned entrepreneurs. Perfect. Good to know. Okay, so I have a question. From when you launched, whether it's this one or the marketing agency, how long did it take from the date of launch to where you hired your first paid employee? What did that employee do, and are they still with the company?
So I think for the first company, the branding agency, we hired the first person within the first month. A big part of that was my employees were in Nicaragua, so it was easier to set up. We were paying more than double the salary in Nicaragua. That's not hard to do, but it was a big part of the reason why I was wanting to do that. We were not using Nicaragua as an outsourcing place that can give us cheap labor. We were using Nicaragua as a place. I had gone to college in Nicaragua. I knew that there was talent there. I knew who the talent were because I went to school with them. So it didn't take me long. I've always been really good at delegating. I think another person that has been with me for the majority of the time is an assistant. And I actually have one, like a family assistant too. So side note, I'm a mom. I have 2 kids. One of the things that I do is I forward her all the emails from the school, which are like 200 emails. And I tell her, check anything for grades X, Y, and add it to our family calendar. And I am not missing things anymore. So I think apart from the business, delegating things internally in your house is super important. The other person that has been in our business, in the cocktail company right now, we're the 5 founders. And we all have different lanes, which is a big difference. If you are thinking of starting your business, make sure that when you are having those conversations and you are looking at potential partners, make sure that it moves away from just having a conversation with a friend on something you guys enjoy or think you're going to have fun with, towards identifying the different things that you each bring to the table and how that can really help grow the business. Because I think that was the first mistake I made in the first startup that I launched in 2018 when I was doing my master's. To answer your question, 5 employees right now at the startup, 5 that are in production. We have been doing that for about a year, a little more than a year. So that one's a little early to tell. In the branding agency, I'm not there, but our first employee was my best friend in college in Nicaragua, and she's still there. She's our branding manager.
Awesome. Thank you.
So for us at On Time Agency, at the sports agency, it started out with one guy. I remember Ramon Sessions, the former basketball player that became an agent now. And he had all these ideas trying to bring them to life. But his value proposition was that he's the player. He's the player driven, right? And trying to create the narratives around his story and building a brand around him wasn't as challenging because it was his real life. It was his real moments. And he came to me to bring that to life. So I wasn't a full-time employee. I was more consulting with him. And in the past 2 years, we've grown our team to 7 employees. 5 of them are full-time and 2 of them are consulting. But to be honest with you, the first few months, and this is 2 years, so this is still at the core of AI. And AI was our admin. AI was our CFO. AI was our CMO. We leverage technology to train AI with these language models and use them as agents for each of the needs of the positions that we needed at the core of the team to get started before we find actual human replacements. That was a big jump for us. We were a lot more efficient. It was scalable because we needed a new hire. Guess what? AI is now taking our meeting notes. But now with the team that we have in place now, we feel like that's enough for the next 5 years because we continue to use AI. But I have a hard time understanding, we would talk about startup and scalability, right? If you can't scale chaos cannot be scaled. And if you don't have a strong foundation or process in place and standard procedures in place, you can't scale that. It's going to break, and you're going to create more holes to pinch on and to break. And our focus right now is not necessarily on new hires, but on creating a strong foundational system, whether it's automated or manual, that it's a process that has smooth flowing, that has been tested, has been proven, and we can continue to focus on the system itself so that becomes scalable versus just trying to hire new people for jobs that we may or may not need.
Who else here right now is using AI as their CMO, their CFO, all these other positions? That's what I thought. Thomas?
And I just wanted to double back. What kind of platforms did you use on those AI solutions? Were they all different?
Yeah, ChatGPT is a common one, but there's agents now, Agents AI, that you could easily Google, look up the top 3 links that pop up are usable. But those were, there's one called Perplexity. There's my Spanish kicking in. Perplexity AI, and that one was the most beneficial to actually train each session and each session or each agent focusing on just that sole job and that responsibility. And then it's at the same time, we don't know if we need a CFO. So we're using AI to tell us why we need a CFO and understand that process. And you can have it break it down to you as you're a 5-year-old. You can have it break it down to you as you are 20 plus year experience, skilled master. So at whatever level, using AI to translate and help you have more understanding of the needs and the voids you're trying to fill, it could be very beneficial.
I love it. Our first hire was our chief engineer, Elliot Martinez. I brought him on as an intern first. So that was my biggest thing. So I was my kind of first my funding into Grind was I used to work at Raising Cane's and the YMCA and just shoveling mud, and that was just fun Grind's prototypes as I was kind of like the guy with the nuts and bolts and welding and doing the hard work. I knew I needed somebody way smarter than me when it comes to mechanical and electrical engineering. I met Elliot at a industrial design kind of I think it was a career fair, and I had a booth there. Brought him on as an intern, unpaid, and he was kind of the first paid employee. Now we have, I think, 10 employees right now, 6 full-time, 4 part-time. But I mean, just to double back on Rob's point of view, I'm very comfortable with chaos. for some reason. Maybe it's the creative side of me. So understanding like the creative process, it's cool to like as an entrepreneur be able to navigate that chaos because you kind of it's like, kind of like a survival tactic for me. You have to be able to operate in chaos, right? But whenever it's time to scale, you're absolutely right. Like break, and you have to make sure that things are set in stone and have processes before you scale up. So we're absolutely like we've tied in our supply chain process, right? We've tied in our warehouse process, right? So all these little things that are coming to fruition as we go into scale high growth mode, right? So yeah, it's super interesting. I love business because it's just super interesting how those dynamics work out, right? It's really cool to me. So, yeah.
I would just also add, like, it's also okay to build the plane as you're flying it. And that's not recommended, but it's also okay. Like, you also have to have your own, we talked about a lot here, wellness and prioritizing your own mental health. But it's good to have a team that you can trust. I'll give you another example of what I've had a lot of failures, a lot of failures. We had a platform called Alopecia Community, and Charlie has alopecia, which results to alopecia areata. Means he has no hair in his body. He had patches when he was a kid at 10 years old. Then at 12 years old, everything fell off. So it was a little bit of a rough childhood, especially growing up in New York City public schools. So he wanted to create a space for them. After he retired, we said, all right, we're going to make this online community, alopecia community. We're going to get merch. We're going to get it going. When we first launched it, it was exciting because he was an ambassador for the community. He was an advocate. And we worked with a national nonprofit organization called the National Alopecia Areata Foundation. So we took the learnings of a lot of these other organizations that were used to create awareness and fundraising for alopecia. But we wanted to take the creative and cool styles of how do you take your alopecia and make it a superpower. And we had all these ideas of creating superheroes and merch, school supplies for kids. So we started Alopecia Community. And we were like, we don't know nothing about community. So we had to hire a community manager. Hired a full-time community manager. We were paying her, I think it was like $400 a week. It wasn't a lot, but it got the job done. And when we first launched in November, about 3 years ago, we had about 400 people that signed up, which was like, we're killing it. All right, great. But then we started carrying on and trying to figure out new ways to increase membership. And we were at a halt, we couldn't pass 500. Our goal was try to get at 1,000 so we could start introducing paid memberships. We couldn't get there, so we hired somebody else. Still the same thing. We couldn't pass that threshold. So we was like, you know what? Maybe we just need to let her go. Maybe we'll do this ourselves because it's not getting any better. That was the worst mistakes we did. Worst mistake. It went downhill from there to the point that it's a complete failure right now. And it's sad because we gave up too early. We didn't want to continue to invest in something that we felt like it was at a halt. And I also like to say that when you do things part-time, you get part-time results. And that was a side hustle. We didn't prioritize. It was a passion project. And unfortunately now, we're now currently right now, today, now we're like, how do we bring this back? We left people in limbo. And it's almost like a dishonesty and for me to try to create something that has so much hype in the beginning, but you gave up because you were at a halt. We just didn't know how to grow it. So the learnings could have been there. Maybe we hire better people. Maybe we don't hire the cousin that was living down the street from us and we grew up and he wanted a job. But also too, I think the most important thing here is asking question to the community itself, getting feedback from those that are looking to, when I said about building the plane while flying it, those that are in as passengers want to participate and help. And we just put out an ad about, hey, anyone here that wants to volunteer or wants to give us feedback and help, we just started a communication channel that allows them to provide service and feedback. And it was flooding with information. Like, y'all should do this, y'all should do this. I was like, damn, we should have been listening. And our base was who we should have been prioritizing and focusing on, then rather than trying to figure out how to do something dope and cool that we think is dope and cool, but they may not think is dope and cool. So that's a learning there, to ask questions to the people that you're building for.
Thank you for that.
I want to add something there. I think the plane you're always going to be building when you have a startup as you keep growing. But I think one of the areas where we err as Latinos because of the culture is that we don't create plans long term. We're not thinking about like an exit. We may not even know what an exit looks like. We're not understanding of like, okay, how about these are the things I need to accomplish in order to be able to exit within 3 years. For me, particularly, I grew up in an entrepreneurial family, but it was in Nicaragua. We don't exit; we inherit businesses, or you just don't stop. The business stops working, right? Either or. And then I came here and I started to realize what an exit could look like, what you needed to position it in. I started learning about multiples in industries and how exits in different industries could give you more of a return. And one of the things that I love about our startup now is that we have an exit plan for 2 years. We're a technology company. We're patent pending. And the plan is to have the first exit within the alcohol industry, but we want to move into different, diversify into different industries. So we want to go into like energy drinks, right? Or coffee and creamer because of the technology that we hold. But being able to understand those conversations and being able to understand what it looks like to plan for that growth is very important. And I think as Latinos, we're building business to make money. And then when we start making the money, we didn't have a plan of like that exit or that next step or that final step. So I just want everyone to be thinking of that, because if not, we start, we make the money and then we continue making money and then there's no plan.
Good point. Has anybody in the audience ever exited a company? Okay. Chris, next conversation topic then. Talk about exiting from a company.
Actually, I'll just add to that too, because when we say startup, that can mean a lot of different things depending on your financial status. A startup could be someone that just raised its, $500,000 because it got some seed money. A startup could also mean someone that works at McDonald's at 9 to 5 and has $50 a week that he or she's putting away to start their t-shirt line, right? So there's different layers to this and there's tiers to this. So for an exit, like I had a creative agency that I started in Fort Lauderdale after my brother retired from the NBA. So after he retired, I was like, well, what am I gonna do now? So I started a creative agency focusing on branding and marketing out of Fort Lauderdale. It was just me, one of my other brothers. We was a two-man show, had a couple of clients, and it was very difficult to scale that because it was just us two. After 3 years, we were able to exit because another agency bought us off and gave us an offer. And then I became part of their team, and it was a bigger team, a lot more bigger infrastructure that it awakened my eyes. I was like, oh, this is what you could do with a team. But that was my exit. But like, there's no sort of like right or wrong answer earlier on, because there's different phases to where that startup stage is. So I'm also curious from everyone here, like, right, is there any solopreneurs in here? Solopreneurs where you're a one man or one woman show, right? So
that's how I started. Yeah.
All right. So share that story, right? Because when you started, give me specifics. Like, all right, you had to put away a certain amount of money. Maybe you had give your specifics on how you went from A to B, from B to C, and where you're at now. Because I think that's important to learn.
So I was in high school. I had this idea to create a portable, affordable shooting machine that's tech driven. I needed team members, but nobody would really get behind it. Right? I didn't have a network. I wasn't in college yet. I didn't work anywhere. And a lot of entrepreneurs either pooled employees, team members from previous jobs, and like that. I didn't have anything like that, so I just started. Like I was like, well, shit. I mean,
but what was that start? So you
right?
had no vision, you had no network. What was that start? Like what you say? I'm gonna buy a domain name. What was that start?
I kind of looked at what I did have. So I was like, well, my parents do have a garage. Homeboy Zay knows how to weld, so I got a welder. I got an idea, so I got pen and a paper. So yeah, I just started with the pen and the paper. Called Zay when I needed to weld, put some metal together. Learned how to weld from Zay, so I wouldn't bug him. And I started, like, there was a machine right here, and it just, it was just like an everyday thing. And I had my first job was at the YMCA, so You know, I walked around with a peanut butter jar all the time, and it was my lunch and breakfast. It was good too. I love peanut butter, but that was my kind of like journey, and all my money would go towards buying metal at Home Depot and different places, and just would always put money into that. I was just real frugal and just constantly just pouring all my cash into that.
At what point after that start you felt like you had a business?
4 years. Yeah, 4 years of not getting paid. God dang, not getting paid, and just grinding. You know, just making the product, and then once people saw what I was making, it was kind of ugly. It was real ugly. We call it the ugly baby internally, but yeah, once people saw it, people were like, okay, yeah, he's for real. I'll work for you, you know, or I'll help, or I see the vision, I'll invest. Right. So it wasn't until 4 years in we got our first investor, and you know, to date we've raised a little under $1 million.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So
yeah.
So,
So speaking on the grind of it, I'm just curious for the Mexican, since it's most of the room, to know a little bit more. When the money was right, what was your meal that you'd power up with? And when the money was kind of tight, like what is the traditional Nicaraguan meal that you kind of eat? Like in Mexico, if the money's not right, you're eating frijolitos con un arrocito y unas tortillas, poquito queso, which I know sounds delicious right now. And when it's right, you're probably throwing on a full carne asada for like everybody to come. So I'm curious, in your entrepreneurial journey, when money wasn't the best, like how did you feel yourself?
So for me, my personal journey is a little different. I in Nicaragua, I grew up very privileged. And then I got married very young. My husband and I got married when I was 20 and he was 22. And we decided to come here because he wanted to do a master's. And we sold the car we had, and we came with the money we had from that car. And I remember, in Nicaragua nos juntamos los domingos and we have pizza at my grandma's house, and we're like 30 primo. And it was so much fun. And I remember hacemos una oración, obviously, after eating the pizza or before. And I was just telling him, like, we're going to the US. And my grandpa's like, yeah, we'll see you in 3 months. Because he's like, no te alcanza with the car that you sold to pay for college. You only have enough for a semester. But we were very determined, and we got here. And the university we landed in was a big blessing. We were able to get he was doing his master's, so he became a graduate assistant, which pays for you to go to college, and it also gives you a salary. But the first 6 months were very tight, right? So I remember, like, my husband would come pick me up. We had our 2-year-old back then, and you could hear a car coming like, and like my son was like, ya viene papi, so we were like, yeah. And we would go have McDonald's. It was definitely a complete shift from what I had grown up like in Nicaragua. So for us, the food was McDonald's. And now it has also, one thing that I wanted to add that you didn't ask, but I think I see a lot of women here, and I want to add this. For me, I went back to school when my husband graduated. He got a job offer. They paid for his visa. We ended up getting the green card through the work he was doing. So I took advantage of that, and I went back to school. I did my undergrad. I had like 7 scholarships. I was able to pay for daycare with the money that I was receiving from that. Then I went back and I did my master's. And I had always been someone who like grinds to things. I will volunteer. I will like give my time. And I remember that I started to see people would notice that, and I was getting opportunities. But what I didn't realize was that a lot of those opportunities, because I was very young and I had never been giving those opportunities, were, maybe not in my best interest. Maybe it was just people seeing how hardworking I was. And that really broke me for the last, couple of years when I started to realize, because I think as women, sometimes we find ourselves in situations where we are working really hard and we're managing being moms and being this and doing that. And then suddenly, maybe the opportunities you're saying yes to are not where you need to be saying yes to. And men are much better at being able to say no. Men are better at like identifying, oh, this is a place where I need to invest my time or not. But anyways, I feel like I'm digressing with all your questions. But one of the things that we do love to eat is steak. Nicaragua has amazing steak. I actually import steak from Nicaragua whenever I go. They give you like this certification. It's grass-fed steak. It's delicious. So that's what I love.
Step up from importing candy.
Yeah.
You're importing steak. What about you?
For me, I mean, when you're broke, you can find creative ways to take a plátano and make it into 10 different dishes. You can boil it, you can bake it, you can fry it, you can smash it. We went through a lot of hard times in my early childhood with eating plátanos every single damn day. This week we'll put ketchup on it. Next week, how about mayonnaise? But when times are good, definitely try to eat at a healthier level. It's something too as entrepreneurs that we take for granted. When we talk about wealth building and here at this Latin Wealth Summit, a lot of times you think of finance, right? Wealth, money. But wealth is something that's enriching, like your body, your mind, your soul, your spirit. And the choices we make today affect our outcomes tomorrow. So yeah, it's cool to eat plátanos with ketchup and eat your own goods of candies that you're selling behind closed doors. But at a certain time, you talk about wealth building, you have to invest in yourself. We got to also prioritize our intake of foods, our intake of the media that we're consuming. Every day, there's a lot of noise out there, and we can get lost, especially as entrepreneurs. You're sacrificing your time. You're corre, pa allá, pa allí. But then when you take time to breathe, like it makes a difference when you're intentional about that breathing. A lot of times we go to the gym to work from the neck down. Very rarely we prioritize the exercise that we work from the neck up. And that's something that we should all keep in mind walking out here.
Thank you. And then Thomas closes out. How do you eat good in Houston? And I know you mentioned the peanut butter cups already. So
yeah, I go to peanut butter when times are hard. I still got it in my truck just to remind me where I was.
Or just in case you get hungry.
Just in case I get hungry too, I'll take a scoop. But I took my wife to dinner, and I love a good lobster and steak. The lobster just represents I don't know, something. Just eating lobster is just really, really, really great. But that's kind of my go-to. I don't have no fancy stuff. Follow up.
Yeah. Well, I encourage you guys to try the food of all the different cultures and get to know them. And if you want to get to know them a little bit more, we are due on time for questions, but we have a little break, I believe, and you can ask them questions right now. Big, huge round of applause for our guest today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.